business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Steve Ramona. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the pod.
Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. Every episode is an invitation, a reminder that business and life isn't just about profit, it's about purpose. It's about showing up with a servant's heart in every deal, every decision, and every day. Today's guest is going to light you up, boys. He's going to light you up. You're going to be motivated. You're going to be challenged. And most importantly, you're going to walk away with tools that inspire action, both in your life and the lives of others. Impact, impact, impact. We want to try to work on that every day. And here's your homework today. Before we dive in, how are you going to serve yourself and serve others and create that impact? It doesn't have to be a big impact. Even a small act of kindness or courage can change the game for anybody. You don't know the shoes they're walking in, and you can come up and change that game right away. I get to do it almost every day. It's a gift that just keeps giving. So go ahead and serve yourself and serve others today. Don't wait. So lean in, take notes. Let's discover how servant leadership in business and life can create ripple effects that last far beyond the bottom line. Now, a quick shout out to my sponsor, Epic Impact, the only universal, emotionally resonant messaging framework that works anywhere for any audience. This 4-step system transformed how I pitch, post, and podcast. I engage, persuade, inspire, and close. And I use it daily, and it works tremendously. Grab your free trial at epicimpact.ai with the promo code Steve to start inspiring action today. And a quick shout out, we just hit top 6 in small business marketing podcast. Today's guest and all my guests and audience, thank you, because we're impacting people every show, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. With that being said, let's bring our guest on the show. Chris, welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and don't get to speak directly with your listeners, but certainly hope that our conversation is inspiring to all of them.
Well, let's inspire them with your 3 life questions. We've talked about when I first met you. You talked about it today. Let's start right there.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. The 3 life questions, I'll just rattle them off. So the first one is, am I living authentically from my true self, as opposed to the self that I believe I'm supposed to be? The second is, am I cultivating meaningful relationships? And the third is, am I having a positive impact in the world? So there they are, just distinctly, and obviously there's a great deal of unpacking you could do with each of them. But those are the 3.
Yeah, and we will do a lot of that because I want people to reach out to you, and we'll get his contact information to get more in depth in this. But is there one of those 3 that are more important than the other, or are all equally important?
Great question. The first one, authenticity, is really, I think, the most important. And by the way, just, I occasionally come up with, acronyms to help me remember stuff. And so the way even though these are not absolutely in order, the acronym for the 3 questions is AIR, A-I-R. So A is authenticity, I is impact, and R is relationships. So that's just one way you might remember them. But in answer to your question, I absolutely believe that the authenticity question is the most important one. And boy, Steve, we could talk for, hours on that. Books have been written about it, etc. The reason I think that one is the most important, there's a great psychologist, and he was a Jesuit priest. He's no longer living. His name is Anthony de Mello, and he was giving a series of lectures at Fordham University. The book that ultimately was a transcript of this is called Awareness. But inside that lecture series, he was speaking to a group of spiritual individuals. And of course, he's coming at it from being a Roman Catholic priest, but he was from India. So he very much had an Eastern mysticism sort of approach to spirituality. Anyway, he said to the audience, and this is something that I've never forgotten, the most important question in the world is not who is God or who is, Jesus Christ, because he was, of course, of the Christian faith. He said, the most important question in the world is who or what is I? And really understanding, who that is. And so for me, this whole question of authenticity, you could dig down into that, so who is I? Who is Steve? Well, Steve is many things. Steve is a successful podcaster. Steve is a successful entrepreneur. Steve may be a great husband, father, brother, son, whatever. All of those things are things that we can know about Steve, but they don't define, who you are. And of course, that's a very deep, kind of topic. And at the end of the day, only you, Steve, know really who you are, at the depth of your being. And therefore, only you can really know and answer yes to the question of whether you are living authentically or not. So I think that one is the most important, because when you dig into that and begin to become comfortable with your own answer to that question, then the second question, cultivating meaningful relationships, becomes easier, and those relationships are much more genuine, and they are much more real and impactful, which is the third question, which is about impact. We all, I think, desire to leave the world just a little bit better, or to be able to say yes to the question of, is the world, if I'm on my deathbed, for example, was the world made a little bit better by virtue of my having been in it? I think we all seek to say, yes to that. And as you said in the opening of this podcast, that impact does not necessarily have to be about solving world hunger, which is a wonderful aspiration. And if you can do it, by all means. But as you alluded to, it could be having a positive impact in the lives of other people. Can be as simple as A, not engaging in road rage, or B, making the checkout person at the local market, who's obviously having a bad day, if you make that person smile, right? Then they don't go home and kick the cat.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be big stuff, but it does need to be intentional. So I do think, the reason why I try to draw people's attention to these three questions is so that rather than living reactively or reflexively, people are living far more intentionally.
Well, and the two, if you're authentic, I think the other two fall into place almost naturally, which I love that you've done that. You're authentic, you're eventually going to be connecting and building relationships because people are like you because you're trustworthy and all that. And then I forgot air.
Well, and then the impact flows,
impact,
I think, frankly, from relation. Even the scenario I painted about making the person at the grocery store smile, that follows from a relationship, which follows from you being authentic. Like if you genuinely want to see this person be a little bit happier, and you make them smile, right? There's a relationship right there. It may not be a long-standing relationship, right? But it is a relationship between two human beings, the result of which leads to something positive. And that really, none of us gets out of here alive. None of us gets out of here with all the things and stuff that we acquire and accumulate over the course of our lives. And yet, I think when we look back on our lives, these three things are going to be really important, which is, as I had mentioned to you once before, Steve, these three questions grew out of my reading of a book all about death. Ironically, it's called On Death and Dying, and worldwide study by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And it's from that we all got the 5 stages of grief, which many people know about. But my takeaway was a little bit different. And it took me years of sort of thinking about this that led me to the 3 questions. But it was basically that no matter where people who were in that worldwide study resided, or what political affiliation they had, or any religious kind of affiliation, if any, their socioeconomic status or education, didn't matter. These individuals who were facing a terminal illness and were trying to navigate their way through that process, were understandably looking back on their lives and trying to put their lives into some kind of context and meaning. And what I guess I distilled from the book was that, you hold all these other variables static, and they were all wrestling with one form or another of these three questions. That's really what allowed them to give meaning to their lives. And frankly, the ones who were capable of answering those questions with a yes. Yes, I lived authentically according to my true self. Yes, I cultivated meaningful relationships. And yes, the world was a little bit better for me having lived in it. Got to a place of peace much more rapidly than those who couldn't. And the ones who couldn't really were approaching the end of their days with a profound sense of regret. And so my purpose in bringing these three questions, and the reason I call them the three life questions as opposed to the three death questions, is I really feel that if people intentionally live with these more top of mind, just sort of as an odds maker, if I live more days with a yes to these questions, chances are pretty good when I get to the end, it's going to be a yes, right? So that's sort of a little bit of the origin story.
And it's a better end. And the other thing is the story with saying somebody's name, saying hello to them, changing their day. The universe rewards you.
Absolutely.
Which people can't see, people can't hear, people can't touch. And I know because I've been rewarded with so many opportunities. You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're going to build that relationship for 30 seconds, but the universe is with you for the rest of your life. And you keep doing these three questions, which I love. They're powerful. That leads to leaders. You talk to leaders. You've said you've talked to a number of people about these questions. What are some common traits you've seen with leaders?
Great question. I'll answer it this way. I've more recently been studying and looking at the work of Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. So she wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight, gave a very famous TED Talk on the topic. She was a Harvard-trained neuroanatomist who had a severe stroke. The entire left hemisphere of her brain went offline for a long period of time, took her years to sort of rebuild it. And I won't go off too far on a tangent there, but what she came up with, and her later book is exceptional, it's called Whole, W-H-O-L-E, Brain Living. Anyway, idea here is that we each carry around with us four sort of brain characters, two in the left hemisphere of our brain and two in the right. And in answer to your question, I think most leaders are very much left hemisphere types of people because, in large measure, because it's the way our culture is built, our institutions are built, our education is built. And the left part of our brain, the two characters inside of that part of our brain the first one is all about to-do lists, getting stuff done, organizing things. What's the next thing on my agenda today? The other character in that part of our brain, though, is the part of our consciousness that sort of remembers all sorts of stuff from the past and is largely a fear-based kind of, it houses all of the memories about stuff we ought to avoid. Don't do that. You touch a hot stove, kind of thing. Whereas the right hemisphere of our brain is far more sort of intuitive. And it's not true that the left brain is intellectual and analytical and the right brain is creative. No, there's an incredible blending of both of those resources in both sides, both hemispheres. What I have found, though, is that most leaders are really focused on the left side of the brain. I think largely because, again, of the way our culture is. And I suppose one of the things that I try to invite people to do is to explore a little bit more, give a little bit stronger voice to the characters that reside in the right hemisphere of our brain, not because those two characters ought to dominate the conversation, but we typically don't give much voice to them whatsoever. And I think there is a lot to be said for intuition. The gut feelings come more from the right hemisphere than the left. And when it gets into things like feeling about how do I feel about my life? How do I feel about my place in the world? And am I satisfied with kind of where I am? If you're looking at that question from something beyond, do I have a big enough house and a big enough bank account? If I'm looking at that from a more holistic way, the invitation then, I think, is to explore some of these other ways of looking at yourself, and your life. Long answer to a very short question, but most people, most leaders that I have encountered are very sort of left hemisphere driven people for very understandable reasons.
Yeah. Empathy, powerful words, but leadership, business. How big is that compared for your three questions that you asked?
Oh, I think it's huge. When you understand yourself better, and we are all, and a lot of leaders, I won't say the good ones or the bad ones, a lot of leaders have a hard time admitting that they, like all of us, are flawed. We all bring our strengths, we all bring our flaws to the party. And once you have a deeper understanding, a deeper sense of who you really are at a deep level, you can see that in others, I think, much more readily, much more easily. And I'm not talking about seeing the flaws in others.
Yeah.
You are able, if you've done some of this work on yourself, I think you are much better able to appreciate the totality of the other person that you're working with, that they are a whole person as well, that has great strengths, has fears, has weaknesses, just like, you as a leader do. And with that kind of authenticity, that kind of empathy that we all share, we share this planet, we share life generally. It's far easier to express some empathy. And I think that's a big part of that second question. I do think the relationship stuff, when we are willing to understand, recognize sort of our shared humanity, the good stuff and the flaws, it makes it easier to have a genuine relationship with another person.
Of that. That leads to success. The bottom line of all this.
Mm.
What's your definition of that?
Well, I'm gonna steal it. Actually, I'm gonna, but so I'll give attribution to this. So I recently went to something with an organization called the Modern Elder Academy. It's a wonderful sort of lifelong learning institution helping people try to figure out what to do with say the last third of their existence, last 20 or 30 years after they've been very successful and they might have sold their company or are nearing retirement. They're trying to figure out what's next. MEA is a wonderful institution. Anyway, attended a Zoom conference for MEA with Blake McCloskey. So Blake was the founder of Tom's Shoes. And Tom's Shoes, sort of was a very conscious capitalism type of company. So he built up this company, sold it for lots and lots of money. Along the way, gave away probably millions of pairs of shoes to underprivileged, individuals. So he did a lot of things, that one would like to see business do. Anyway, sold the company. He went into a deep depression for several years and sort of on his way out of it, and he's still coming out of it. He gave this definition of success that I'm stealing. He said, success used to be for me all about the things and stuff and the metrics that you measure as an entrepreneur. And he said, now I measure success by the number of moments in a day in which I am fully present.
Beautiful.
And I thought that was interesting because it's not because, he expects to be or needs to be Zen or whatever, which is wonderful. But I think what he's talking about presence wise is I am fully here to experience this moment and what this moment has to offer me. And boy, I think to me, that's kind of a powerful and a powerfully positive definition of success. The Earth's been here, what, 4.3 billion years? And we get to be here for 80, 90, 100 years. Like it's not even a blip. And we spend it, myself too. Like this is not to be preachy. Like I still deal with this every day. It's how much of my time am I fully appreciating the experience I'm having? Like I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. But if my mind is thinking about the thing I have to do right after this, or if I'm thinking about the stupid thing I said, 30 minutes ago, right? I'm not here, and I'm not even experiencing this moment. And we get so few of them. Life is pretty short, and in the grand scheme of things, worrying about all the stuff we worry about is a colossal waste of energy.
Beautifully said, because this is the problem with the world. They're so distracted with social media and work and more entrepreneur. There's so many things distracting us, news. We forget that let's be present as much as we can. And Tom's found that's a beautiful message. We all need to work on that. So we come to the end here. I like to find out a little bit more about the guests. So the audience goes, oh, this guy's a cool dude, because you are a cool dude. So I've got a table in a restaurant for you. Table of 4. You're going to sit in one of the chairs. You got 3 empty chairs.
Yeah.
Who would you invite to converse with, whether they're dead or alive?
Okay.
And what food would you order?
Ooh. Great question. Ooh. I mean, I could go big and say, like, it'd really be kind of cool to hear what Jesus had to say or whatever. But I'll go a little bit. I'll drop down a little and say, okay, I would love to have Anthony DeMello, who I think I mentioned, Michael Singer, who I really value, and Viktor Frankl.
Huh.
I think if those, and unfortunately they're all gentlemen. There should probably be. I know there are a number of exceptional females that I would love to also get to know and get their perspective. But certainly for me, those 3 have been major influences, in my life and my way of thinking. What would I order for dinner? I am I'm not a wildly imaginative type of guy. So first I would canvass the 3 of them to see what their interests were. And then I'd either go with sort of a steak or a seafood thing. I'm not very eclectic or imaginative when it comes to food.
Hey, nothing wrong with surf and turf. I think a lot of people in the audience are getting hungry right now, like I am. That guy just had lunch. Thank you for being on, taking the time. What I really love is your 3 questions. Let's say those 3 again before you sign off.
Sure. Am I living authentically? Am I cultivating meaningful relationships? And am I leaving the world a little better?
We didn't dive deep into them for time-wise sake, but some people that want to dive deep into this, how can they reach you?
So, I'm on LinkedIn. My website is the3lifequestions.com. The number 3 is numerical. Otherwise, it's all spelled out, the3lifequestions.com. And I can be reached via email that way, chris@the3lifequestions.com. I would welcome the opportunity to chat with any of the folks who have listened here and are curious about any of this. I try my best to not be preachy. I certainly hope I didn't come across that way today. I just think that these 3 questions are important ones. Frankl had said in Man's Search for Meaning and elsewhere that, it's not we who get to give life meaning, it's life that asks us questions, and our job is to answer the essential life questions. And I think that these 3 don't necessarily cover the lot, but I do think that they are 3 of, the essential questions that we ought to be, building our lives around. So I hope that's helpful to you and your listeners.
Absolutely. They're 3 beautiful questions. Thanks again. And audience, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Here's a perfect reason. If you want to learn more about these 3 life questions, you want a better perspective on life, here's the guy. Share the link, watch it. But when you subscribe, the link gets sent to you. And it's a gift, because now if you're talking to people, and I talk about this all the time, if you want to serve people, bring them a resource. And that gift is a podcast. It doesn't have to be this podcast. It can be any podcast. But let's relate to this. Perspective is what he's talking about. Change your perspective, live a better life. It's as simple as that. It's hard to do, but mindset-wise, it's simple to do. So reach out to Chris. Reach out on LinkedIn. Share this podcast. If you have questions, reach out to me. And with that being said, me and Chris want to thank everybody for watching or listening to this podcast. We'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.